We can say ADHD, we can say ADD, we can
Mm-hmm.
say any alphabet that we need.
Right.
But it's really like our children are challenged. And
Yes.
so
Right. And what we commonly see here and is tics. We'll see motor tics. We'll see muscle twitches. We'll see the kids start stretching their heads back, doing prolonged yawns.
sometimes of how labels get put onto children because they
Exactly.
come into a stressed environment. And so again, these are just the outward ways that our kids respond. And sometimes it'll be maybe diagnosed, may not be diagnosed, but again, it's just these short circuits that I think we're going through.
Yep. And these short circuits then show up in symptoms, right? Hey everybody. Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Skip Wyss, and I am with the wonderful, amazing Dr. Julie Wyss. Dr. Julie, where are we today?
We are in the Legacy Life Media Studios here in Green Bay.
Yeah, I absolutely love this studio. And Dr. Julie, the last few podcasts we've hit on going back to school and what it's like to have good school ergonomics, and just like it is for work ergonomics, right? And what we have to do to really help our children prep for the best year possible. But every parent out there right now, we are going to be basically 1 week away from school starting, and they're nervous, they're worried, they're concerned. The reason why is the kids are getting worried. The kids are getting concerned.
It's overwhelming.
It is overwhelming. And I can guarantee you, every one of you are starting to see those little tics start showing up with your kids. Because the reason why I know this is that we are starting to get phone calls here at Prime Family Chiropractic Centers about these very specific things that just didn't seem to be around all summer. We see a lot of parents, we hear a lot of parents calling right now talking about their kids being too anxious. They can't sleep at night. They're waking up at 3, 4 in the morning, can't get back to sleep, can't fall asleep. And why would this be?
Well, we can say ADHD, we can say ADD, we can say any alphabet that we need.
Right.
But it's really like our children are challenged. And
Yes.
so what we do here in our office is we make sure the neurology is working. We're making sure that the brain is able to communicate with the body. And so whenever, no matter the age, if it's an adult or a child, when we get into these environments where there is extra stress or worry, or that we don't know what's happening, it does these little short circuits in our brain. And what we have found is that chiropractic is one of the only things that can help with that short circuiting. So I'm assuming today we're going to kind of talk about some of the things that we can do in addition to the chiropractic, but it's these short circuits that's why a child behaves a certain way or reacts a certain way, or even when an adult in a stressful environment, or if somebody's talking to them loudly, either shudders and kind of shuts down or tries to remove from the situation, or reacts and gets back up into your face. And so again, however we title this, we may say ADHD, ADD. This can be people that have those labels, but this is also different challenges that people potentially have that may be diagnosed, may not be diagnosed. But again, it's just these short circuits that I think we're going through.
Yep. And these short circuits then show up in symptoms, right? And what we commonly see here and is tics. We'll see motor tics. We'll see muscle twitches. We'll see the kids start stretching their heads back, doing prolonged yawns. All of these things are signs that the nervous system's under a tremendous amount of stress. And what I mean by that is that you particularly hit on it absolutely perfect, Dr. Julie, is that when we don't have the right communication between the brain and the body and the brain start to get stressed, but they get stressed opposite of one another. So one starts working too much, the other one starts working too much. And what happens then is, just like in any relationship, both people in that relationship are working too hard to try to compensate, not adapt, compensate to the stresses being brought on that family or the stresses being brought on in that external environment. So when we're going back to school, your child is stressed and nervous, and you will notice that they will start developing some of these tics. You'll notice just the simple shoulder shrugs, or you'll notice that they get nervous, and then they'll start sighing, they'll start yawning. You'll start noticing that they will develop a stutter. These are all signs that that nervous system isn't on proper communication anymore, and we're missing this proper wavelength. So now the mouth is working too much, just like some would say about me when I'm talking, or that their GI might be changing. But bottom line is that now all of a sudden this anxiety starts to creep back into the fold, and the child just starts getting really, really nervous.
This can also show up in like different eating habits that
Yep.
all of a sudden we're choosing not to eat, or we can't eat, or our stomach just magically hurts. All of a sudden a child may start talking to like an invisible friend or making things up, telling different stories. This
Right.
is headaches. All of these things that you think like, well, nothing's changed. It's the stress response the body is having on that child or that adult.
Well, if your child in the last month starts coming up with some symptoms with digestion or headaches, they're definitely got communication issues going on where their body's not adapting to the stress. So then what happens is now the brain gets overwhelmed and stressed out, and then it actually gets tired out, and that's not okay. So it's just like in anything in your life. If you're running, mom and dad out there, if you're running at 150% nonstop, what's eventually going to happen to you? You're going to shut down. Your body's going to shut down, and it's either going to lead in one of three things. You're going to have catastrophic failure, which means that it's a complete shutdown. You're going to either get sick, or you're going to start lashing out in either some sort of verbal violent tone, or you're going to cry and break down. So those are the three ways you're going to communicate that you're stressed. Your child does the exact same thing. Your child's going to do the exact same thing, except now it's just going to be in a smaller tone, or it's going to be in an even more violent, mad lash out where they'll flip their rooms over, they'll break stuff, they'll kick walls, they'll punch their brothers and sisters, or they'll get extremely sad, they'll cry, and they'll break down
Moody.
and they'll hide. They'll go hide right underneath their bed. And those are all windows into brain development that show us that that brain is not communicating to the body properly, and it's completely stressed out. And this is not okay. The other thing that we see this time of year is a massive amount of toe walking. And we'll see it all the way across the board from 5 years old all the way up to 10. Generally, teenagers can control it because they know they're getting up on their heels, they can feel it build up on them, and they can put their feet down, but little ones cannot. And heel and toe walking, again, is a sign that we're not getting the right communication, because they should be able to stride out, they should be able to move, they should be able to walk, and they should be able to properly heel strike and then side and ball strike their foot. You should be rolling in that direction. They should be doing that, toeing off when they're walking, and a lot of the times when they start getting stressed, they get up on their toes.
And it's funny, like my head went to like when you said the heel toe walk. Like if you're struggling and you're in a stress environment, I'm just thinking you get pulled over, right? And maybe you were swerving because you were daydreaming, or maybe you're on your phone, and then you're asked to walk that straight line. Lots of times, like sometimes that's where you get those false positives,
Yeah.
because you're neurologically being shut down. And in that instance, can your brain recover quick enough for you to be able to do that heel toe walk and stay in that straight line?
Well,
So you may pass the breathalyzer, but if that comes back, like that is why.
so it's balance, right? And we check
Absolutely.
balance at our office all the time. And that's actually what patients will see that we differentiate when we're checking children and adults is they'll say, I've never had my balance checked. Well, that's a problem, because your balance is the first indicator that we have a nervous system that's not communicating
Shouldn't be
correctly.
waiting for alcohol to be checking that
No,
test.
balance is a big thing. So we check balance. And honestly, if you're inebriated and drunk enough where your balance is off, you shouldn't be behind the wheel. That's number one. Why do you think they check that? But if you're sober and perfectly normal, so kids, little kids, have them walk in a straight line. Hell, put this line on the floor, put a little piece of tape down and tell them to walk it, but without looking at it. And have them go heel to toe. Have them tap their toes in front and in back of their body. See if they can do it 3 without losing their balance. See if they can hop on one foot, both sides, without losing their balance. What you will notice is one side is better than the other, and usually the side that's better is the non-dominant side. The dominant side will be worse, and you're going to think in your mind, well, if they're dominant on that side, shouldn't it be better? Exactly. And if
that's the problem.
That's the problem. So now what are we doing? The non-dominant side is compensating. And the reason why we're talking about this is you might be sitting there saying, well, why in the heck does this have anything to do with the behavior of my child? It has everything to do with the behavior of your child. Because if your child's nervous system is exhausted and overwhelmed, you're going to start seeing this pop up in normal functioning things functioning abnormally or dysfunctioning. Ranges of motion will change. Muscle systems will change. Posture will change. Posture distortion and deviation in a child where they have their shoulder blades higher than one another, or their shoulders are cocked up on one side over the other, or their head's coming forward.
Right, we're sitting.
Yep, or they're C-shaped. C-shaped is a big deal. Why is that C-shape such a big deal then, Dr.
Well,
Julie?
it's like our body is shutting down.
Okay.
Right? Like if you think of, what is the animal that curls up into a ball?
An armadillo?
An armadillo?
Yep.
Yeah. No, an opossum.
No, not an opossum. You're talking about a hedgehog. Hedgehogs curl up in a ball.
Where they, and they kind of play dead, but what position, right? They curl up. And so that means that we are shutting down. So anytime that we go into this curl position, that's shutting down our brain, that's also a trigger of, okay, that brain is being overstimulated. And so that is the only thing that our body can think to do to try to like shut out the outside and to decrease all of the external pressure. So it's doing that, but then if we are sitting in a learning environment and we're covered like that, then we wonder why our children are struggling to be able to learn, to integrate, and to get to higher brain stores.
Yeah, and that nonstop stress response. And then what happens when your child's stressed out just like you? What happens? What happens? Think about it.
How do you react?
How do you react? So you're either going to get upset or you're going to get sad. And adults do the exact same thing. In fact, a lot of my female adults that I deal with, a lot of my moms, I'll only see them cry under states of stress. I rarely see them cry even when they're sad. They cry when they're mad or they're stressed out, because the ultimate trump card in your body, when you are in this state of hypersympathetics, hyper stress, the number one trump card is your tears that draw you back into a state of calm, relaxed. And that's why after you have a really good cry, you actually will feel more calm.
You need that endorphin release.
And it changes and your body comes back into rest and digest. So the other thing we want to look at though is that when we're moving along this cascade of events in children, when we do get super stressed out, then we get sick. And a lot of parents will come to us and say, it's the first 2 weeks of school and my kid's got a cold.
They're sick already.
My kid's sick already. And yes, it is due to the extra exposure of their friends. They're finally back with their friends. They're finally all around those immune systems. Their immune system is actually responding normally to get a cold, to get a fever, to possibly puke, to get sick. That's actually expressing symptoms like they're supposed to. And then their body's going to get used to what's going on. They're going to develop a cell-mediated response, which is a normal response, which is immune exposure response. And then it's actually going to develop an immune response and become immune to those colds and viruses that are rolling around. But the reason why they're super susceptible to it early on in school is because of stress. It's because of their body being stressed. Yes, we have 2 children. Our daughter is 16 and our son is 13. Are they going to come home with some colds? Probably. Is it going to happen in the first 2 weeks of school? No, it will not. And the reason why, as everybody else in their classes are getting sick, they're going in non-stressed, meaning their nervous system is actually adjusted and communicating like it's supposed to. So they shouldn't be getting sick right away. They shouldn't be. They may express some symptoms.
They're able to adapt to the environment and fight off those things because they aren't, red flags like emergency alert system. Their body is able to bring those things in. The body can overcome them, kill those germs and bacteria to allow them to assimilate and not get sick.
Yeah, and you're probably now thinking, like, you guys haven't talked about ADD, ADHD at all. Well, all of this excess stress leads to your body's inability to stay on task. It leads to your brain's inability to handle simple tasks because it's already stressed out.
And this is the unfortunate sometimes of how labels get put onto children because they come into a stressed environment. And so, again, these are just the outward ways that our kids respond. And sometimes it'll be, well, your student is a star pupil. Like they're perfect at school, but then when they come home, it's like the raging bull.
All heck breaks loose.
Because again, it's that stress response. So labels or no labels, sometimes that's where just because we get a label, then we think that, okay, now I have a reason to be able to do things. But again, if we just push all of that aside. We just need to be alert and see how our children are responding in those environments, then to know what tools that we can use that we have at our disposal to best support our children and adults in that situation that they're in.
Exactly. So that is one of the simplest, most easy ways to go about this is get your child's nervous system checked, number one, but also look at systems that you can put in place now with these next couple weeks before school starts or even previous. If you've listened to other podcasts, and if you haven't, I suggest you go back and listen and actually see what we have for suggestions to decrease the stress in your child's life going into school, which is one of the most stressful periods they will go through. And then, of course, sugar season is going to be upon us here in October, and we'll be hitting on that eventually here in a little bit. But make sure you tune in next week because we're going to be going over this a little bit more and talking about increasing our child's immune response next week. So we cannot wait to have you guys jump back in with us. Dr. Julie, is there anything else you would like to add today?
No, make sure that you hit the subscribe button and follow us.
And turn on those notifications so you can hear what we have to say and never miss an episode. Take care, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Go out there, get it done. Bye, everyone.